So, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight for this Frank Taylor and Associates webinar. And we've got a treat for you today. And for those that do know him, he's Dr. Barry Oulton. He needs minimal introduction, but for those of you for those of you that don't, Barry is an expert in dental business, performance leadership, profitability, and then on to practice values. With absolute decades of experience, not that it looks like it, of helping dental practice owners understand what truly drives the worth and strength of their practice and how to improve the financial performance and strategic control. Barry's worked with owners all across the UK, as well as is on a flight currently going to America and Australia to build more sell ready and resilient practices. Today, we're going to be covering a breadth of topics and really understanding what most principals and associates overlook when it comes to profitability within the practice. So, welcome, Barry.
Thanks very much. What a lovely introduction. That's very kind of you, mate. It's
That's
nice
okay.
to be here. Thank you for having me.
No problem at all. So, I think the first question is before we talk about kind of increasing the value, because that's kind of the result of which you're going to be kind of talking about. Can you tell us a bit about you? Why do you care so deeply? Why does this topic matter to you?
Yeah, so um I am still a clinician. I'm not doing a lot at the moment. But I started my career in dentistry as a clinician, like most of us. And I was, like most of us, I was trained to diagnose teeth, not business.
Yep.
I always knew that I wanted to own a practice, though. My dad had two jobs, employed and self-employed. Um, and so when I qualified, I spent probably about 5 years working in different environments to see what I liked and see what I wanted. So that I knew I had a better idea of what I wanted. I then got mentored by a guy who was about to start a corporate. He was instrumental in helping me. And because of what he was doing, I ended up becoming a practice owner and buying my own practice.
Mhm.
Part of the reason I'm passionate about what I'm doing is that I know that there are a lot of dental practice owners who are making the same mistakes that I did that now
Yep.
I can help protect them against. And I'll
Mhm.
give you for instance, right, is that I thought that busyness equated to success. I didn't want white space in the diary. My
Mm.
direction in the early days to my receptionist was there's a gap, fill the gap.
Yep.
And I think that is primarily because we were indoctrinated back in the day to consider that we were effectively working on an hourly rate. You were paid, you
Yep.
were wanting to charge an hourly rate. Um, and so we thought that realistically there were only three ways of making more money.
Mhm.
And, who doesn't want more money?
No, of
The
course.
first is increase the rate at which you're charging per hour.
Yep.
The second is to increase the number of hours that you're working or get other people to come in and increase the hours, but not by you.
Mhm.
Or a false way of doing it is to increase the types of dentistry offered. And so that's what I did. I worked my backside off. I was worried about my fees. So I struggled
Yep.
mentally to put the hourly rate up. And I spent tens of thousands learning how to do different sorts of dentistry.
Yeah.
None of that really added any value to me or the practice. Um, I didn't, in the early days, I didn't study business performance. I didn't study financial structure. And to be perfectly honest, I abdicated financial control to my accountants.
Yep.
And yet nothing was on time. It was always a year and a half behind because, I didn't know how to read a P&L when I should have even actually been reading a balance sheet. I had no clue what a balance sheet was. So I if I'm really honest, I've also been delivering that kind of level of financial clarity to my clients for the last 3 years. What I mean by that, Oliver, is my teaching on financial clarity has been woeful.
Yeah.
I am uniquely able to help people to dramatically increase their gross revenue.
Hmm.
And I have never really been focused on profit. You
Right.
know, it's vanity, not sanity. It was, I would say, I don't get into your numbers. I think that's what your accountant needs to do.
Yeah.
But in the last couple of years, I've met a man. I've met a man who has actually who started to help me truly understand the numbers and actually understand that when we know those numbers, data drives everything. And so now I've shifted and I'm taking all of my clients and combining them with working with this guy that I've met, Sashir, who's a chartered accountant who has developed for the last 3.5, 4 years, a piece of software that gives people their finger on the pulse.
Mm.
And it's kind of like, I liken him to periodontal disease. And the reason I say that
Right.
is that 20 years ago, 30 years ago when I qualified,
Yeah.
most dentists at the time didn't really focus on gum disease. You
Yeah.
know, it wasn't a big thing just before I qualified. And so they didn't probe. We do this thing called a basic periodontal exam, a BPE now, where
Yeah.
we screen everybody every time because it's so prevalent and it's the biggest cause of tooth loss
Mhm.
that medico-legally now we need to screen everybody
Yeah.
because on the outside their gums look good. And then you
Mhm.
probe and it's like, wow, you've got deep pockets. You've got gum disease. You're at the
Right.
risk of losing your teeth.
Mm.
That's what's happening with business is
Yeah.
that I was looking at their gums and going, your turnover, that's okay. We can get your turnover better. But I was never probing going, have you lost bone? Is there a risk to the business?
Mm.
Or actually, when we come to sell it and value it, it's not based on turnover. It's based on profit.
Yep.
And so we have a great turnover, no profit. The value of the business is really poor.
Mm.
So Shashir now is my BPE. He's the guy that then actually gets underneath and goes, how healthy is this business?
Yeah.
Right? It looks good. You know, you got a man driving around in a nice car. You got a ladies swanking around in beautiful, beautiful clothes, and a nice handbag. But how healthy is it? And so
Yeah.
that's why I'm now passionate because I can't unsee and unknow what I've become aware of in the last couple of years. Lots of people listening to this will already know all of this and be like, well, of course, stupid. But most people don't. Most
Uh,
people
yeah.
don't know their true numbers.
Yeah. I think it always, for me, the phrase that as you were talking about that, I was just thinking of you can't improve what you can't track or that you don't track. So
Yeah.
it's you need you need to at least have a basic grasp of where everything's going to be able to say, right, okay, month on month, can we improve these specific metrics? Whether it is the turnover or the profitability or just cutting back on some costs. Yeah, it's kind of right. Yeah, what is the metric that is going to make the most improvement for us? Because it might not be the turnover. You might
Yep.
be spending,
Yeah.
yeah, way too much.
Yeah. And most people don't know exactly what's going on until they
Mhm.
get a report called a set of accounts that is lagged and is behind. And
Yeah.
I think, you know, as practice owners, like I said in an earlier conversation,
Mhm.
I too became an accidental business owner.
Yep.
I became and I developed systems and processes of eloquently helping patients make better choices and better decisions, but it
Yeah.
didn't make me any better at the finances. So my schooling in the finances has been over the last couple of years, and the difference it's making to my clients is unbelievable. And
Mm.
so, yeah, I'm now passionate about making sure that all of my clients and actually everybody in dentistry, because they don't need me, they don't need Sashir, they need the information. So what we want to do is share with them what's the information you need. Make sure you're getting that. If you're not getting that, give us a call. That's fine. But
Yeah.
get this information because with this information and this data, you can make proper decisions, proper choices and drive the business forward. Because what we'll talk about over the next 40 minutes is how to increase the value of your business if you are thinking of having an exit at any point in the future ever?
Well, that was going to be one of my next questions is
That's it.
how early do you need to be thinking about an exit to I've got some thoughts and opinions on kind of how early, but
I was going to say,
from your point of view, how early should they be looking? So say if I want to sell my practice next month, probably not the right not the right time. How early should we be putting plans like this in place?
yeah, it is such a great question, isn't it? Because again, I made all the mistakes, guys.
Yeah.
I've made all the cock ups, so you don't have to. Who I sold to, how I sold it, when I sold it.
Mhm.
I decided it was probably about a year and a half before I thought that's the date to pass it on that I thought I
Yeah.
want to sell. Um, I've read Michael Gerber. I've read Michael Gerber that says the only reason to have a business is to sell a business, and that, you know, the really savvy business people who get into a business because it's a business have an eye on selling the day they buy it.
Yeah.
Now, they may not have a date on selling, but they're building their business maybe not just as a cash flow business and a lifestyle business, but they're also building it as an asset. And I did not understand how to build my business as an asset. I falsely thought that it was an asset just because it was a business. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I now, and this is why we met and had a coffee as well,
Mm.
because my belief is if we can help practice owners to identify 5 years from today when they want to sell,
Yeah.
and we say, okay, great. So you want to be sold in 5 years. That gives us plenty of time to make a significant shift in the value of the business,
Yeah.
as opposed to most people are like a couple of years. And a couple of years, you'll scratch the surface, but actually fundamentally, there's so much more that you could do in adapting and changing and improving the value of a business if you've got enough time. So
Mhm.
in answer to your question, ideally minimum 5 years.
Yeah.
Um, the best case scenario is the day you buy it is start to run it and think of it as an asset
Yeah.
so that you make slightly different decisions and choices so that it is sellable even if you never sell it,
Well,
right?
and
That
that's
the
the thing, isn't
best,
it?
isn't that the
The
best scenario?
yeah, because the best business is the business that is ready to sell. Doesn't matter if you hold it for the next 10 years, but if
Exactly right.
if it's ready to sell, it means it's profitable, it's well running, it looks good to a potential buyer, which yeah is the best
Yeah.
place to be.
Is to have that choice and that flexibility. So
Yes.
if you're thinking of selling in 2 years, you know, you're not going to make a huge dent in it.
Mm.
If you're thinking, oh, eventually, start working on it. Start
Yeah.
finding out, how do I build this as an asset and how do I increase the value of it? Because actually, it's not that hard. Just
Yeah.
takes a bit of focus
Yeah.
and not doing the norm, basically.
And as well, you get the benefits out of it at the time as well. So it's not that you're just building it for something that you're going to get the benefits in 5 years' time. You get the increased profitability and turnover and
As you
of
go,
it.
absolutely.
Yeah,
And life work balance, because ultimately,
of
if
course.
you know, the one of the biggest issues for me was I was the only owner operator and
Mm.
I was the only dentist. Well,
Yeah.
effectively, I was the business.
Mm.
Had I really been savvy, I would have brought in and made it more associate led.
Yeah.
Um, but again, you know, I'd made a decision to sell, and you know, and it was fine.
Mm.
But if I went back in time, I'd do things very differently. And now that's what I share with my clients is let's at least
Yeah.
be aware of what we could do differently, even if you choose not to do it. It's
Yes.
basically a treatment plan, right? I just
Yeah.
need you to know what all the options are so that you can
Mm.
say no to that option, as opposed to getting to the end of the journey and going, God, I wish I'd known, which is what I did. I wish I'd known.
Yeah.
I could have done this or I could have done that.
And I think it's no one way is harder than the other. I think it's just different. And I think that's the struggle that if you've been working one way for 20 years and it's like, right. yeah, we need to change things. It's not that way. It's harder. It's just, yeah, this is ways just different to how you have been doing it for the past.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I saw a really good thing. It's a few weeks ago, and
Mm.
it said something like, "Being overweight is hard. Being fit and healthy is hard. Choose your hard. Being married is hard. Being divorced is hard. Choose your hard." And
Yep.
actually, whatever you do, owning a business of any sort, however you run it,
Mm.
it's hard, right?
Yeah.
But choose your hard, but not just
Mm.
based on today, based on where do you want to be in 20 years, 10 years,
Yeah.
5 years, 3 years, because you might make slight course corrections now that get you closer to where you actually want to be in 5 years. But I agree with you. It's hard.
Yeah. And I know you alluded to it kind of a few minutes ago in terms of practice value being based on profit rather than turnover.
Mm.
Um, why would you, how would you say in terms of increasing the EBITDA or the profit is much more important than just increasing the turnover alone? And kind of how would you, what would be your framework in terms of going about doing that?
Um, so turnover alone is that very often people confuse turnover with value.
Yes.
But valuation is not a multiple of revenue. It's a multiple of sustainable, transferable profit.
Yes.
And you can be incredibly busy and still be building very little asset value.
Mm.
So the key shift is understanding that effort doesn't drive valuation, structure does. So it's
Yeah.
about having structure. It's about being organized. It's about understanding, what are the things that you should be pulling on and pushing on. And we have 7 pillars or 7 levers that we really focus on, and the things that can affect practice
Yeah.
value. Um, and so that is EBITDA, so profit quality,
Yeah.
predictability, so how
Hmm.
stable and how recurring the income is,
Yeah.
principal independence, so can the
True.
practice run without one individual?
Hmm.
I was it. That devalues.
Yeah.
Next one is operational control, systems and reporting.
Hmm.
Revenue composition, because not all income is equal, right? Leadership
Yeah.
strength, culture, team stability,
Hmm.
team happiness,
Yeah.
and I think crucially financial visibility, because you can't improve, like you said, you can't improve what you can't see. You can't
No.
improve what you can't measure. And ultimately valuation comes down to really one question, and that is how safe and how scalable is this profit?
Yes. And thing is, I think it also comes back to you don't want any nasty surprises at the end. If you know your numbers, okay, what until you get a valuation by somebody reputable and they put a number on the business,
Yeah,
you'll kind of you should have a rough inkling, a rough idea of where your business could be if you hit the multiples that you think you should.
yeah.
Whereas if you don't know your numbers, it's kind of a no idea. It's a bit like selling a house. I'm sure before anyone sells your house, you have a look on Zoopla up and down the road, see what other houses have done, and knowing,
What did I get?
yeah, knowing roughly what you should be worth. But without knowing what you've got, you can't kind of put that on, yeah, and kind of map it out in terms of where you should be and whether you should be increasing it or whether you're kind of happy to kind of put it to market that.
I think from my own messing up, my own
Mm.
experience was when I was selling my practice, because I didn't fully understand the numbers.
Mm.
When there was any amount of pushback from the purchaser, I kind of felt almost like I didn't have choice because I didn't
Right.
understand.
Mm. Yeah.
And, they would say something about whatever the value was. And I kind of almost had to go, oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's because I felt that at that point of selling, it wasn't so much choice because I decided that I was selling. And then when it got to those final kind of negotiations,
Yeah.
I'd mentally checked out.
Yeah.
And so now what I do, I've got a couple of clients who are beginning the process of exiting, and I'm able to pass on that learning from myself onto them,
Mm.
which is we need to be really savvy with the numbers, because if somebody
Yeah.
comes back, we can say no, or yeah, I agree, and this is a solution, or whatever,
Yeah.
whatever. And that actually not mentally checking out,
Mm.
but making sure that we are in control as much as we can be of that process and that exit. And I think that starts by understanding things years before.
Yeah.
So, you know, my mission is to help people become a lot more financially savvy
Mm.
when it comes to their business.
Yeah, and it gives you the power, like you said, to
Yeah.
back it up. Because of course, whoever's buying it is going to want the best price, so they're gonna they could dig into it, query a bit, and if you have that knowledge to back it up, it's like actually, no, no, this is how it is, and this is how it's set up, and
Or at least understand what it is they're saying and why they're saying it.
yes, yeah,
Because
understand it from their side.
if you're selling to any size of, you know, corporate
Mm.
beyond 20, it's accountants and, you know, very well educated financiers that are
Yeah,
asking those questions, and they've got
mm.
models and they run numbers and they'll come back. So yeah, we have to arm ourselves with the right information so that we can handle that.
Yeah. In terms of, I know we spoke about it a couple of minutes ago. In one of your pillars was the predictability of the income.
Yeah.
How important would you say that is not only for the valuation, the exit side, but also for kind of principals' peace of mind and kind of the day-to-day running of a practice before sale?
Massively, massively important, because buyers buy certainty. And
Yep.
if income is volatile, if it's dependent on one clinician, which it was with me, if it's inconsistent, then
Mm.
that increases perceived risk, that reduces multiples, stability increases value. And um, I was going to say that, not to keep harping back to my sale,
Yep.
but I struggled at that point, not recognizing that predictability and stability was key.
Mm.
Um, because I was all about the growth, right? And the
Yep.
opportunity. Look, I've got this opportunity. They didn't care about the opportunity. I cared about the opportunity.
Mm.
They cared about the existing stability. And I think ultimately they, they saw that it was stable, but I didn't recognize that that was important at the time. I was like, I can take this, you know, I'm single handed. I'm working 3.5 days a week. We're doing 1.1 million. I've got a business plan to take it to 3 million in the next 2 years. Woohoo. I'm excited. They didn't
Yep.
care about that. In fact, they said, yes, that's really great, and then never actioned any of it. They were just interested in the stability. So that made me understand why there was a point in time that practices with plan payments,
Yep.
practices with NHS contracts
Hmm.
had inherently more value because they were predictable.
Yes.
And so we can now take that learning, and we can implement that into a private practice
Yeah.
by improving predictability, tracking, understanding, looking at where things, because also it can be seasonal, right?
Yeah.
So super important that we're understanding that and that we're aware of it.
Yeah. 100%. Um, but I know you literally just spoken about it then. I'd like to kind of touch on the part in terms of the reliance of the current principal.
Yeah.
Obviously, with yourself, if you're, say, the only dentist or say a very large grocer within the practice, um, how would that affect the value of the practice? And I can can't see how it matches up with kind of our methodology and bits.
Yeah. So I, again, use me as an example. Um, if most of the revenue disappears when the owner leaves, the
Mm,
practice isn't really an asset.
yeah.
Um, it's a job.
Mm,
And I had part job, part asset. So the more independent the structure within that business, the more transferable and scalable it becomes. And that's a major valuation lever. So when I'm working with my clients and actually flying to Baltimore tomorrow,
yeah.
one of the things that I'm going to be working on is a 3 to 5 year plan of helping the owner clinician um, to begin to reduce the dependency of the business on her,
Hmm.
and how we are going to build that into a more associate-led model.
Yeah.
And I think there's a couple of interesting points on this, is because if you are if she's just looking at turnover and the valuation of what she's bringing in, right, and her turnover is just over $1 million,
Yeah.
is that when our business is valued on profit, not only do we need to reduce the dependency on her,
Hmm.
we actually need to leverage the gross revenue, because obviously there's a percentage of that. In the States, it's 34%, so it's lower, but we
Hmm.
need to increase the gross revenue to balance out and gain the same profit.
Yeah.
That takes time. That's not something you can do in 24 months.
No.
It's, without a shadow of a doubt, it's something we can do in the next 3 to 5 years.
Hmm.
So that's the plan, is when you recognize this early on,
Yeah.
you can begin to put things into play that enable you to be less dependent on for the gross revenue, and therefore the valuation and the stability of the practice is better. And
Yeah.
that's where I went wrong. So the only way realistically that I was able to realize the value of my practice is I got locked in for 5 years.
Right.
So
Yeah.
as the owner operator, if
Mm.
they sold and I walked away, not everybody would leave, but inherently that's the value of the business gone.
Yeah.
So with 2 weeks to go, they went, oh, by the way, your contract is not 4 years. We're locking you in for an extra year. So I was locked in for 5 years to operate. Um, but now I get it, right? Now I understand it.
Well,
Of course,
that
that makes sense.
I'd say that goes back to your client in Baltimore, that their 5 years starts from the day they sell. Like that 5 years should be starting 5 years earlier, so the
That's
practice in a
beautifully put.
is in a saleable point by the time you get there. So yeah,
That's Yeah, that's such a great
yeah.
point. If you're going to do 5 years, why don't you do 5 years from now
Mm,
and start building the value of the asset and beginning to exit, getting better life work balance, working a
yeah,
bit more
yeah,
on the business, not necessarily in the business. Great
yeah,
famous quote from Chris Barrow, to
yeah,
enable you to build that asset, not work a job. Because currently she's working a job. They wanted to take me on as a coach, and I went, no, you're not coachable. And they were like, what do you mean? I said, well,
right.
you're in Baltimore and I'm not, and I
Yeah,
need boots on the ground. So the only way I will coach you is if you quit one day of clinical work, and you and I then will work together, because then you'll have one day a week where you can implement, ear to the ground, you can listen to what's going on. I mean, this is
yeah,
a 12 operatory practice.
mm,
America do it differently. And so because she's so desperate to do this, she's gone, absolutely. So now I know I can help them
perfect.
to make a
Yeah,
decent shift, because she's going to work on it, not in it.
yeah, and that's I think it is. Yeah, it's reducing that reliance on the principal because I think any buyer, corporate or non-corporate, is going to want to sort of just swap out any of the not any of the team members, but to be able to swap out that principal for another, whether it be them or whether it be an associate, and
Yeah.
they need to be confident that they
In an
can either gross the same as you or to be able to put in an associate that would gross the same.
in an ideal world, you want to have those options, right?
Mm,
Um, if it's somebody that is wanting to be clinical, then that's a different model from, say a corporate.
yes.
But in my experience, and this is not to, piss anybody off, I'll just be transparent, is that it's rare that I deal with practices where there are associates grossing more than principal owners.
Mm,
It is the most common that principal owners are typically the highest grossers in the business.
yep.
Um, that can be different if you have a principal owner that has an associate that's doing lots of orthodontics or implant work.
Mm,
But typically in restorative dentistry, you don't find many associates that gross more than the principal, which means that when there is this handover, if it's going to be associate led, then there needs to be a decent profit
Yeah.
because the gross revenue is likely to reduce.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And I think that sort of brings us on to um, the more operational side
Mm.
of the practice. And how have you found implementing your systems and operational control of a practice has increased, whether it's the value kind of, yeah, for the sales at the end, or just again the peace of mind and the running of the day to day in the practice and how it's helped those principles?
Um, I think this is one of the biggest levers
Mm,
is that most of us principals are busy being busy,
yep.
and we get our heads down and we just get on as much as we can. In
Mm,
fact, I had a phone call yesterday. Not a client, will no doubt become a client, but the question was, I've just sent my first child to private school. I'm under pressure financially. I
mm,
know this, I know that, and I just wanted to ask you a question. You know, should I be working more hours? And I was like, oh my
yep.
God, no, please don't do that. You know, uh, what are your profit centers? I don't know.
Mm,
What what's your treatment acceptance rate? I don't know. I know that I didn't gross as much last month as this month, and I'm like, okay, there's very little measuring going on, right?
yep.
And I think in terms of valuation, chaos reduces value. If there are no
Yeah.
KPIs, if there's no reporting rhythm, if
Mm,
there's no visibility on profit centers, what's working, what isn't, on hygiene performance or treatment conversion. We present 3 treatment plans. We color code it. I want to know what's been presented, what's been accepted, what's been completed.
yep.
That gives us a percentage of each of those 3 areas, because
Hmm.
once we've got that percentage and we've got the data, we can ask really good questions. Like if
Yeah.
if on disease we have a 98% acceptance and completion rate, first question is, why haven't we got 2%? What's happened to the 2%? Why isn't 100% of diagnosed disease being treated?
Yeah.
And the answer is because now and again, when you present a treatment plan, the patient says, this is not the right place for me. I can't afford it.
Mm,
And so they don't complete, and you go, okay, I understand that. When we're presenting preventative and elective,
yep.
then we can start to track, because if your acceptance rate is 70% on disease,
Mm,
we're asking a different question. It's either fees may be inexplicably high,
yep.
treatment presentation is poor,
Uh-huh.
follow up is poor. Oh mate, let me tell you this. I wasn't going to share this. And this is one of my clients, recent
Yeah.
clients. He operates on Dentally,
Right.
and we're about to plug in the software DentPulse into that, right? Because Dentally is cloud based and we can operate with that easily because we have the API and we plug in.
Cool.
And I said, what are you measuring? And he went, not a lot. 2 surgery practice. I said, okay, he said, oh, the diary's a bit empty.
Yep.
Money's down a bit. I said, what's
Oh,
your recall rate like? Well, I'm not sure. I said, okay, let's run a recall. Let's do it live. So I'm on Zoom with him. We dial into his Dentally, and I went, I'm interested. In terms of treatment diagnosed and presented, what's outstanding? And he said,
yeah.
well, I don't know. At my worst, 10 years ago, no, it would have been longer, 12 years ago, I had £48,000 worth of treatment diagnosed and untreated,
Right.
right? So we ran a report. I said, do me a favor, run a report for 24 months. I sat there
Mm,
watching it on this screen next to me. And we were both utterly gobsmacked. He has
yeah.
a 2 surgery practice. Guess the value of treatment diagnosed, treatment planned, presented, but not completed over a 2 year period. 2 surgery practice.
Oh, no idea. I assume it's yeah
2.4
high.
million.
Oh, just
That tells me several
missing out
things,
on it.
right?
Yeah.
It tells me they're working really hard
Mm.
to examine and to consult patients,
Yeah.
that their follow up is almost non existent. I mean, it
Hmm.
has to be non existent.
Yeah.
That there is, if all that we got was 10% of that,
Yeah.
that would more than double the profit. Because the fixed costs are the fixed costs, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I actually wrote, and it's now a 30-page document. I wrote, and I'm delivering a training on reactivation.
Yeah.
It's the language skills, because what it tells us is whoever is picking up the phone is scared to ask the right question. They
Yes.
find it easy to say, oh, you're an NHS patient. If you don't come in, it's nearly 2 years, you're going to fall off, because that's like,
Mm.
we're doing you a favor.
Yeah.
But most telephonists, receptionists, nurses, whatever, find it
Mm.
very hard to say, oh, hi, Oliver, you've got some outstanding treatment.
Yeah.
And so then I asked another one of my clients, and she has a 4 surgery practice, and in the last 12 months, £430,000 outstanding treatment. So if you're watching this and you don't know exactly the number of diagnosed, presented, and untreated treatment, go and run a
Mm.
report on it, because
Yeah.
it's
100%.
huge, right? Control equals confidence,
Mm.
and confidence equals value. So these are the things. And if you've got any outstanding stuff like that, having a decent lead time to work on that, train the staff in how to do it eloquently, means that you can start to recoup that, or at least find out, why are people not coming back to have that treatment done? What's going wrong? What's missing?
Yeah. No. Yeah. Makes complete sense. It's
2.4 million quid.
2.4 million. That's ridiculous. Like I said, it's just that follow up, and I think there's again going back to well-known phrases. I think there's a bit of a theme coming through. Is all of the money's in the pockets of the people that you already know.
Famous Barrowism, right? All of the money that you ever need is in the pocket of the people you know
Yeah.
and they know. So
Exactly.
your
Yeah.
existing patients. And
Yeah.
actually, to be fair, Oliver, that's exactly what we did. So numbers don't really matter now, right? But 10 years ago, when I decided to sell, it was just little old me, general dentistry, no ortho, no implants,
Mm.
3.5 days a week with a hygienist, turnover 1.1 million. That would equate now to probably, I mean, we're 10 years down the line, so at least double that, right? Working 3.5 days a week.
Yeah.
In fact, it would be double that, because crown fees were 495, and typically now they're around about 890, 900 quid.
Right. Yeah.
So we're about double in terms of fees.
Mm.
Um, and that was getting 40 new patients a month just for me, zero marketing, zero spend on marketing for 18 and a half years.
Yeah.
It was all word of mouth, and it
Right.
was all reputation. And we had a systemized approach to that.
Mhm.
Is that we had a systemized approach to every single step that we had with our patients. We measured things, right? We didn't measure things for the first 15 years, for God's sakes, but we learned our lesson, and we started to measure our conversion rates and everything that was going through. And that gave us confidence, because then we had a really good eye on the ball. We also knew that patients that were coming in were pre-qualified because they'd been recommended or referred.
Yeah.
Makes a
Yeah.
massive difference.
Massive. And I think that kind of takes us on to um, kind of leadership and culture.
Mm,
Obviously, we've spoken about kind of the profitability of a practice and how kind of monetarily that kind of all stacks up through the accounts. But how can leadership and culture really transform, again, the valuation side of it, but also the lead up within that 5 years up to the sale for kind of the peace of mind of the principal and then on to a potential buyer.
mm. Um, Again, my own learnings is that when I started coaching
Mm.
practices, I had a natural assumption that the principals would be explaining why they were engaging with me, what the aim was, what they were looking to achieve, so on and so forth. And it turns out that the majority, and again, if you're watching this, this is not you. This is other practice owners. The majority that I came across were great dentists.
Mhm.
The majority that I came across were lovely people, and yet poor leaders who
Mhm.
didn't understand what culture is. And so
Right.
I'd have a conversation about mission and vision. And again, this is what we're doing in Baltimore.
Yeah.
Yes, and he sent me his manual. He sent me his manual, which is 308 pages. Yeah, I've written this manual and I've given it to all the staff. And I was like, oh, okay, that's why there's resistance, right?
Yeah.
This is not their mission. This is not their vision. This is not
Mhm.
their culture deck. This has been dictated by the owner.
Yeah.
Most owners don't even do that. So at least that's a step forward. But I think culture is at the absolute epicenter of what we do. Culture protects profit. So what I go in and do, if they haven't done it themselves, and they can do it themselves, right? Because I've got a training on it, is that I encourage them to get their teams together to discuss what their values are. Why do
Yeah.
we do what we do? How do we want each other to feel? How do we want to behave with each other? How do we want a patient to feel? How do we want to behave with the patient? What are the
Yeah.
expectations that we hold for ourselves and one another as a team? And then we get them to develop a culture deck. And if anybody wants to go and see a really great culture deck, go and look at Spotify, do Spotify
Right.
culture
Yeah.
deck, and you'll see beautifully produced, right? We don't need to produce it like that. But a
No.
culture deck not only is a document by which you can wear with pride and put on your website and demonstrate who we are genuinely because the team have written it,
Yeah.
it also is a great document for hiring because it acts as a
Nice.
filter system. If we've decided how we're going to behave and
Mm.
then we have a job available, I want them to look at the culture deck. I've
Mm.
got a client, Leary, by the way, if anybody needs a job, Streatham, and she has written her culture deck. We have produced a web page for her, which is a video of her saying, hey, one of my long-standing associates is emigrating to Australia. We have an opportunity. This
Mm.
is our culture deck. It's a brilliant way of displaying who you are and why you're different from other practices. That inherently, the fact that you've got that builds
Yeah.
value. Why? Because you have low staff turnover. You have
Mm.
associate stability. This guy is only leaving because he's moving country. He's moving continent, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You reduce internal conflicts and
Mm.
it reduces buyers' perceived risk because
Yeah.
nobody wants to buy something that is all over the place. And I think it's strong leadership creates stability and stability increases value. So culture is super important. And if you're watching this and your culture you believe is kind of weak, it's actually there's a nice simple process to go through that will end up helping those that don't fit the culture to maybe look elsewhere, but certainly giving those that would like to fit but currently don't the opportunity to fit. But we
Yeah.
have to help them and ourselves define what that culture is and find that
Yeah.
culture so that they can decide whether they want to be in it or not.
Yeah. No, no, I completely agree. I think culture is, have you ever seen the box in terms of, was it skill and culture? In terms of you can teach people the skill. So
Ah,
say you can teach someone to be a better dentist, you can teach them how,
yes,
you can put them on courses, you can do all that. But if they don't fit the culture, they're the ones
that's it.
that, yeah, you need to move on fairly
Yeah, I
fairly
think with
swiftly.
the right culture and the team becomes self-regulatory and self-managing
Yes.
because we've all I developed my culture deck training by cherry picking from different things, and one of the
Mm.
things I cherry picked from was you're a bit young to remember this guy, but do you have you heard of a guy called Paddy Lund?
Can't say I have.
Right, I
Sorry.
think it's fine. So Paddy Lund,
Mm,
English guy living in Australia,
sure.
and he developed a beautiful patient journey, and
Mm,
that's what Chloe and I did at my practice. But one of the things that he did that was new to me, because I didn't understand culture, is they came up with this thing called the courtesy system.
Okay.
And the courtesy system is effectively culture. It was a set of agreements that all the team wrote about the things that we agree to do for each other. For
Yeah.
example, we do not talk about anybody behind their backs. If
Yeah.
we have a problem with somebody, we
Hmm.
go to that person first. If we do talk about somebody, we use their name. So these seemingly inconsequential individual things that actually, when stacked together, there's probably 10 or 12 of them,
Yeah.
really defined their internal culture.
Yeah.
And so I
That's good.
took that and used that in my practice. And then I've kind of taken that and advanced it into not just what we talk about internally, but how we express this externally.
Oh no. Yeah. Fantastic. And it's lovely to have a kind of process to put around that rather than just being like,
Yeah.
it's culture. Everyone just be nice to each other. And I think we're kind of getting towards the back end of the webinar now. But I think
Yeah.
I'd like kind of two things from you to kind of sign it off. That would be great.
Yeah.
The first being, what are the three things that a practice owner can do tomorrow in short bullet points? It's like the top three things you need to go home and look at tonight. And then also, what is the biggest problem that you've seen that stops people implementing these? What's the biggest barrier?
Okay. Um, Number one
Mm,
has to be financial visibility.
yep.
Um, Honestly, that's what I have lacked.
Hmm.
And I think genuinely that's what my clients have lacked for the first couple of years of me coaching. It's what we've now brought in, and it's made a significant difference to everybody that we brought it into.
Hmm.
Um, so my coaching now is partnered with Shashir. It's like as a dentist, I now recognize I cannot work without a hygiene therapist.
Yep.
Um, Neither one is more important than the other. We both we both are working for the same thing, but we're coming at it at
Mm,
slightly different angles. And so Shashir has
yeah.
developed this incredible software called Dent Pulse. It makes sense because you got the finger on the pulse of your
Yeah.
financial thing. He's a
Yeah.
chartered accountant, and
Hmm.
it turns accounting data into behavioral insight, right?
Yeah.
So it allows owners to see profit quality, margin trends, dependency risk, and it's quick, it's clear. I've seen it update in the moment
Yeah.
because it
Yeah.
links your PMS, whether that's, and we've signed an NDA with HS1, which is Henry Schein 1, so
Mm,
dentally and software of excellence, but we also can plug into anything that is open. So CareStack,
yeah.
we're in with them as well. And
Mm,
it bridges that gap, but it's accurate data. So it's not
yeah.
an AI report, because ultimately we're giving clarity, and clarity can
Mm,
drive behavior.
yeah.
So first thing, without a doubt, is financial visibility.
Hmm.
Next thing is frameworks,
Right.
systems and processes, because that gives clarity. Um, and without the clarity, everything is theoretical.
Yeah.
You can pass things through artificial intelligence, but if it's inaccurate data, you're going to get inaccurate responses, and they still
Yeah.
need to be interpreted. And if you don't
Yeah.
know how to interpret them, then your implementation is going to be lacking.
Hmm.
Most dentists are operating with retrospective accounts,
Yeah.
not performance intelligence. They're
Yeah.
working with old data, and most dentists don't understand that. They look at their P&L, not their balance sheets, and there's a
Hmm.
difference. And so what can they do? Start to either have somebody that is properly financially savvy, and um, there are no names to be named here, right? But we've been working with more than half a dozen close one-to-one clients.
Mm,
Not a single one has accurate information from their accountant.
right.
Not a single one has accurate information in their zero because things have been
Mm,
misallocated and misplaced.
yeah.
Everybody has needed things to be cleaned up and cleared up,
Mm.
and everybody has needed to have some hand holding and education in understanding what that information is and what that information means. And that
Yeah.
means I think we as dentists need to step up our game in terms of us verbalizing our requirements of our financial advisors and accountants.
Yeah.
And I am purposely putting the onus onto us as the profession, not a potential perceived failing of the accountancy profession.
Yeah.
That's a personal opinion that I would leave to other people. I think we own the responsibility. We just haven't known. We don't know what we don't know. So
Yeah.
we haven't ever really asked for the right information.
Mm.
And it's only when we know what information to ask for, we can determine, is our accountant or is our advisor capable of giving us that? And it
Yeah.
seems as though so far there's a good number, even specialist accountancies,
Mhm.
accountant firms in dentistry
Mm.
haven't been capable of giving my clients that information that now this
Yeah.
cheap piece of software does. And we don't want we don't want to do your accounts. Keep your
No.
accountant, but at
Yeah.
least have the right information.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. Nah, it makes complete sense that like we've been a running theme coming through is you can't increase or you can't improve what you can't track. So start with
Data
start
is
with the
king, right?
tracking. Um,
Yeah.
and then yeah, I think this comes on to, did you have was it a third point? So we've
Yeah.
done
So
the,
I think
yeah,
if I was going to say, what can you do right now? I'd
yep,
go, firstly, understand what true EBITDA is,
yep,
assess dependency risk, and improve your financial visibility. Those would be my top three immediate
the
things to do.
groundwork. And
Yeah.
then what, as a final thought to anyone that's just like, yep, I'm going to do it. What have you seen as been the biggest barrier to starting? Is that right? We need to,
Procrastination.
yeah.
Yeah. I would
You-
say,
yeah, you just need to get through it, get done.
I'd say stop avoiding.
Mm,
Avoiding is expensive. You know, I was the proverbial ostrich head in the sand. I tell you why, right? And forgive, I do use profanity, so I apologize. Um, One of my opening lines when I talk to anybody is it's really hard to cock it up in dentistry.
yep.
Most of us are making a reasonable living
Mm,
because it just kind of works out. We work hard, we do a good job, the fees and the costs kind of work out okay, and we earn a living.
mm,
Most of us are not running a business that is growing an asset.
yep.
And because it's really hard to cock it up, most people are comfortable whilst being
Mm,
uncomfortable. They're not
yeah.
uncomfortable enough to do anything about it.
So
It's
yeah,
like it's like being in a in a relationship that isn't quite working out, but the fear of getting out or the fear of doing something is greater than the fear of
yeah.
just sticking with what you've got. And so if you don't know what you don't know, at least
Mm,
find out,
yeah.
right? Get some information, know your numbers, stop avoiding it. Um, don't avoid it because you don't understand it,
Mhm.
right? Get some help. The moment you gain clarity, your fear reduces. And
Yeah.
when your fear reduces, you start to act, right? You don't need to become an accountant, but you do need to
No.
understand the
Mm,
asset that you're building
yeah.
because one day somebody else will value it. And it's
Yeah.
better if you understand it before they do and do it early. Get cracking
Yes.
5+ years before you think that's the date I want to sell.
Yeah. Well, like we said before, you might as well spend the next 5 years doing it. Otherwise, somebody will buy it and then do it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
they're the one that's going to get the benefit.
absolutely. And why shouldn't you? And
Yeah,
you know,
100%.
I think everybody needs a coach
Mm,
in some areas. I've got three coaches at the moment, and one of them said, "Why have you got three?" And I went, "Well, they're all doing different things. They're all
right. Yeah.
helping me in slightly different areas and giving
Mm,
me advice in different things." Um, you know, if you're unsure, get some help. There's plenty of people out there.
mm.
Um, can I plug an event that we're doing?
Yeah. Go on, why not? Why not? Go for it.
So we are running an awareness workshop, right? We're
Mhm.
going to do a live event in London. We're going to charge 29 quid. That's it. Um,
Yep.
and what we want to do is make people aware of their financial position.
Sure.
We will get them to bring their laptop. We'll show them the software. You know,
Hmm.
there's no hard sell, because
Yep.
if you want that information, this stuff just sells itself. But
Yep.
what we want to do is take people through a process from like 10 till 3. So
Hmm.
it'll be a decent workshop where you work on your numbers, your practice, start to understand it more. I'll
Yep.
be in there. Sashir will be there. It's going to be in central London. 29 quid. It's an absolute no brainer. And
Yeah.
it's going to
And
happen on April the 25th, which is a Saturday, 10 till
mhm.
3. We'd love for as many people to come as possible. And then, if you go to dentpulse.com, you'll find all the
Yep.
information there. It really is about helping and serving the profession, because I know ultimately that will come back to us. So
Yes.
just come and find out, come and meet, come and have a conversation, and then you take that information away and play with it as you will.
Oh, perfect. But I think that kind of takes us up to the hour pretty much. Like,
Pretty good timing, Oliver.
yeah,
I'm
very good
very
timing.
grateful, mate.
No, I've enjoyed the entire conversation. I think it's obviously coming from a valuation perspective, we get to see the afterwards of all of this hard work. So it's
Yeah.
lovely to get all of
Oliver, can
your
I
ideas and
ask you some
opinions.
questions?
Sure.
As a valuation company, and
Hmm.
obviously selling, when do you think
Mm.
people, because you said you've got your thoughts, but I didn't, selfishly, I didn't ask you, when do you think people should start to think about their exit and their exit strategy?
We're similarly aligned on that. I think minimum 3 years. That's kind of to get enough accounts through so we can actually see the increased profitability and actually put a value on it. Ideally, 5 years.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, as you were talking, I was thinking, yeah, that's very similar. Because the thing is, you need time to put the plan together, time for it to work, time for that to be reflected into the accounts, for then us to have a look at the accounts and then put a value on it at the end.
And then as an advisory service, what do you think, what are the first and top three things that you think a practice owner could do to begin that
Mm.
process?
I think first, I agree with you. You need to know your numbers. You need to have a look at your accounts. Then,
Hang on, pause.
sorry,
Is it accounts?
have a look at yeah, all of your numbers, not just the accounts. So yeah,
Yeah.
the balance sheet, the P&L. Obviously, talk to your accountant, make sure everything's being tracked properly, make sure it's all yeah,
Think
all
immediate finances, I think,
yes,
because accounts are retrospective. And so,
yes,
not to challenge you on that, but just to highlight that when we really think about it, I think as a profession, that's what we've always said. We've always
mm,
said, oh, check out your accounts. It's actually, well, no, what's going on today? In
yeah,
fact, what's going on next month and the month after that?
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
expand
it
beyond.
doesn't matter what happened historically. It's nice to know, but yeah, that doesn't tell you the story of the here and now.
Yeah. So know your numbers. What
Know your
else?
numbers. Also to understand your once you know your numbers, understand your profitability because
Mm,
that is going to be to how to unlock the value of the practice. So know if you're overspending, if you're underspending. So we've actually got something at Frank Taylor called the Dental Data Vault,
right.
which has taken the past decade worth of valuation data that we've done, analyzed it all through AI, and
Right.
we can bring up for it's down to county level what the average spend for, say, associates, hygienists, mats and
Wow.
labs, and we can pull out that data and map it to a specific practice. So we can say actually you're 15% above the county average for
Not even
mats
the
and labs.
national.
And the reason we did
That's great.
county is because take rent, for example. Rent in London is going to be stupid compared to rent in Lincoln.
Yeah.
But your rent in London might be 3% below the London average. So you might be thinking, but my mate pays 50 quid a month for his rent. Why am I paying 10 grand? It's, yeah, but you're not comparing apples to apples.
Yes, I think
So
that's
it's
awesome.
yeah, so it's really understanding yeah your profitability and understanding are you overspending? Are you underspending? Is that good? And if you are underspending, could that money then be utilized better within the next 2 or 3 years to increase probably at that point the turnover?
Lovely. Yeah, this has been, I've enjoyed this, mate. Thank you very much for having me
Yeah,
and having the
no,
conversation.
yeah, no, I have as very much as well. So yeah, I hope everyone else has really enjoyed the conversation, and yeah, we'll catch up soon.
Look
So
forward to it.
thank you
Thanks,
very
Oliver.
much. Cheers.
Cheers,
See
mate.
you later.
Bye now.